Good evening, folks. Okay, we're going to get started with the conversation. I'm really pleased to welcome Keith Walsh, who's the co-director of Apples of the Golan. It's his second feature documentary with Jill Birdsworth, who's the other director of this film, and we're happy to welcome back to lead the conversation Shlomi Eldar, who is, as I mentioned, a journalist, and his documentary Precious Life, which was on the short list for the Oscars, was presented here, I think, closing night 2 years ago. 3 years ago already, as part of Other Israel Film Festival. And to jump right in, I'll hand it over to you, Shlomi.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Kate, when I've been asked to be the moderator of your film, I had two questions. One of the question was why an Irish filmmaker make a story about Golan Heights, and the second question was, do you think that I will understand the Irish accent of him?
I suppose there's only one way to find out, isn't there?
Yes.
How we came across the story
Yes.
was we met a guy in Ireland. His name was Garrod O'Cooin, and he had done human rights. He had been an intern in a human rights organisation in the village. He spent 3 months there. So he came back to Ireland, and he realised there was a documentary to be told there. So when he told us, we met him, and when he told us the story, we were kind of sorry. It was kind of instantly interesting to us. Was the stories were interesting, but also the visual element to it. He brought back a lot of photographs, and the visual element. The place was so beautiful, and to be able to tell the story in a beautiful place was kind of very interesting. And I suppose why an Irish person? I mean, it was by coincidence, but I met at the London Palestine Film Festival when it was shown in May. There was a professor from North Carolina in Middle Eastern Studies, and she said of all the places in the Middle East, the Golden Heights is probably the closest to Ireland. So in her opinion, that was.
You've done any research before you came to the Golan Heights to meet the Druze people? And the difference between the Druze of the Golan Heights and the Israeli Druze inside Israel?
To be honest, when we went, we learned some stories, but then we decided that we wouldn't go into it too much, and we wouldn't research too much. We would actually just go and find out as we were there, to find out from being in the place, rather than actually kind of learning lots about it and going in there with a specific agenda or a specific thought.
So you took your camera and just starting to shoot people?
Yeah,
by the camera.
We went there in 2007. It's kind of hard to hear with the feedback.
Yes,
there's a lot of feedback here.
I think there is a noise outside.
It's very difficult.
Outside, yes.
No. It's the same for you?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So we started filming in 2007, and we finished in 2012, and we were there for about 10, 11 months, back and forward, and we shot about 250 hours of footage.
And when you decide this is the end of the film, end of the shooting, because the background, the civil war in Syria, and this is the most important story when you're shooting a Druze country, Druze city, in the Golan Heights. There's a stream, Syria, country that does not exist. That's not exist. The Syria, they are just imagine another Syria.
Yes, I understand what you mean. Trying to decide where to finish it and when to finish it was a very hard decision. We had been there for so long, and we needed to finish. And as we were finishing, the conflict in Syria was developing and changing. So, and it's still going on, and it's still developing, and it's still changing. So we had to make a decision that we would, and as well as that, in the Golan Heights, Apples of Golan is a very visual film, and we wanted it to be very visual. So we didn't want it to be about a lot of people talking about ideas and ideology. So the conflict in Syria is very much over there, and what happens in the Golan Heights, the conflict, the the two protests when they actually had a fight, that was one of the main visual manifestations of the Syrian conflict in the Golan Heights. So I suppose that was the decision there was to leave it in a sense that here's the community that was in many ways very together. There's a division there, and this division will go on for. There'll be a cloud hanging over the community.
And can you explain the loyalty of the Druze to Syria, to Assad?
I suppose there's a couple of different reasons to it. I suppose there's one reason. Some of them are really nationalistic, and they have they believe that, and there's a very strong belief in that. And you mentioned it there about this kind of this country that doesn't exist.
Yes.
In many ways have been cut off for 46 years. There's this idealized version of the homeland is in their heads, and the further that they go away from the time when they were part of Syria, the more idealized it becomes. So, that's what they believe. That's what some of them believe. But there's others then who will, they have family that are left in Syria. So, kind of for pragmatic reasons, they outwardly show support to Bashar al-Assad because they are fearful of what will happen to their relatives in Syria. And particularly, they're very, very...
Of course. And if you return back to Mac chapter 2, do you think that will be the same story?
They're not the exact same story, but I mean the story is still developing.
Still developing, yes.
It's there's when we were filming, we were only able to get one person, Hatem, who's the guy who was very vocal about. Who was the guy who was tortured in Syria? He was the only one that would actually talk to us. And now there's more, but there's still not a massive amount.
And I think it was the most logical voice for the film.
I just came in for the very end, and I kind of got that sense that people felt that as well. Yeah.
Yes.
But look, the way it is, the way we kind of intended it to be, is that there's many different interpretations, there's many different ideas in it, and we try. There wasn't an intention to have a very direct message when we were making the film. It was to look at this community and to examine identity and nationalism and
Yes.
Occupation, and that's kind of that was so you can kind of get into.
I saw it's very very ironic.
Mm.
Some of the scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like they're
When they took Assad picture and educate something that this is our president.
Yeah. Well, look, it's meant to be open to various different interpretations, and that was kind of one thing that was really interesting. And it was a friend, a Greek filmmaker friend, who brought up a research that Gregory Bateson did on the double-blind phenomenon and schizophrenic behavior. And she said, when people are put into he said, when people are put into a double-blind situation, they act they outdo themselves to be able to perform, to show off. And in many ways, that nationalism and the size of the flags and the flags draping down, and it's kind of like, they're almost going out of their skin to be able to show their nationalism.
Yes. Tell us more about the editing, because I know that many people don't know how hard it's to editing a documentary. It's different from fiction film.
Yeah, like the thing about editing documentary is there's no start. You can start anywhere.
Yes.
So there's no script. There's no start. There's no start, middle, and end. And we had 250 hours of footage to go through. So it just took a lot of time, and it was two of us, myself and my wife Jill. The two of us. It's a two-person crew. I do camera work, she does the sound, and we both direct, and we're both freelance editors. So it was a process of just constantly working the footage and seeing what was working, and seeing we could have cut it. There was many different ways to skin
And
it
you are
down.
the cameraman also.
I was the cameraman, yeah.
And that I must say congratulations, because I really loved you as a cameraman.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a question?
Questions from the audience?
Well, I'll pick up. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You're on? Okay. There were two scenes in the film that struck me as unusual. The first one was at a border crossing where a woman is being restrained and she's screaming. She wants to go across.
Mm.
The second scene is not the border crossing, but is where the Israelis are firing upon the whether there were Druze or not, the Golan Heights Arabs who were having a protest.
Mm.
How on earth were you able to shoot that without the Israelis confiscating the film?
Well, both times you picked out the two bits that we didn't actually. Well, it was three bits that we weren't involved in filming. There was our translator was involved in filming because we weren't there at those particular times. So,
Okay.
but if we were there at those times, we wouldn't have had any issues with filming. We were actually there. We were in the Golan at the same time as the woman tried to get across, but we just happened. We weren't. We actually had been at the border that morning, and we were on the way back, and she passed in the car unknown to us. But. It's I suppose like both of those things just kind of happened, and if we were there with cameras, it would have been easy to film it. It would have been easy to film, it would have happened in the same way.
And please explain the demonstration, the situation.
Yeah, the situation with the demonstration was it was I get the names mixed up. It's the Nax. Naksa. No, it was the second one. Naksa. It was the anniversary of the 6 Day War, and they were trying to come across. They had done so the previous month at the Nakba celebrations. The Syrians,
the Syrian side,
the Syrian people. They were coming from the Syrian side. The Syrians who had been
to cross the border.
They wanted to cross back. There were Syrians and there were Palestinians and Syrians. So the Syrians who had been, their homeland was the Golan Heights, and they wanted to come back, and also the Palestinians.